Today is Tuesday, March 29th of 2022. Pursuant to Governor Baker's June 16, 2021 order extending certain provisions of the open meeting law under Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and an extension to allow for remote participation until June 15th, 2022. The March 29th, 2022 Select Board meeting will be conducted via remote participation by the board. We will give Westwood Media the right to record the meeting, and so that those that are not able to join us tonight will be able to view at a later time. Under the chairman's update, we have two things this evening. First, the annual town election will be scheduled for April 26th, 2022. And as you may recall from our last meeting, this year everyone will be voting in the high school gymnasium. Important dates to remember: April 5th, absentee ballots will be available as early as April 5th. April 6th, the day after, is the last day to register to vote for the annual town election and the annual town meeting. This year, the annual town meeting will be on May 2nd of 2022. The following elected offices will appear on the ballot. There is one for the Board of Assessors, a 3-year term, tax collector, library trustee, moderator, of course, once every year the moderator runs, planning board. There are 2 different positions available, 1 seat for 1-year term and 2 seats for a 3-year term. The school committee, the select board, and the SOAR commission. So please be sure to get out and vote on Tuesday, April 26th, if not early by absentee ballots. The other important announcement is the annual town meeting will be held on May 2nd of 2022 this year. It will be at the high school. It'll be in the gymnasium as the plan right now. We are planning for an indoor town meeting to be held. All town meeting information will be posted to the town website, and the Finance and Warrant Commission will hold its final public hearing for the annual town meeting tonight at 6 o'clock, and we will be headed there, or at least I will be headed there at 6 o'clock. The agenda and Zoom information are posted on the town website on the main page, so you'll be able to find that. All right, under scheduled action this evening, we have several things. We have a public hearing this evening for Verizon small cell communications equipment. And we have several individuals joining us from the Verizon to talk about their request this evening. Hi, Paula, how are you?
Very good, thanks. Thank you for having me. My name is Paula Foley. I'm a Verizon real estate network specialist, and I have several other individuals from Verizon on today. For example, we have Stan Yusevich from Verizon Government Affairs. Sean Conway is also with us. He's the principal engineer for New England Small Cells. And also Derek Mayhew from Centerline Communications is also joining us. Centerline is the site acquisition specialist that Verizon used for these 2 locations that we're proposing to the board tonight.
Okay, thank you for joining us, everyone. So you have 2 poll locations that you're looking for. Poll number 13-104. The address is 692 High Street. And then you have a second location, poll number 27-65A, near the property at 578 Pond Street. So for those that are viewing the meeting this evening, do you want to tell us what this is all about?
Yes, of course. As you noted, Verizon has submitted petitions for permission to attach small cell communications equipment to the 2 utility poles you mentioned located in the public rights of way. And both of these utility poles are jointly owned by Verizon and Eversource. If there are folks who are watching that are unfamiliar with what small cells are, small cells have a unique small design which allows Verizon to strategically install small antennas in high demand locations. The small size really mitigates the visual impact of these antennas, and it increases wireless performance in these targeted areas that need additional coverage and capacity. So these 2 proposed facilities, the purpose is to provide better service within the town of Westwood. At each location, the equipment will consist of 1 small canister antenna located at the top of the utility pole. And lower down on the side of the utility pole will be a remote radio unit and a meter.
Okay, and we were given pictures of those as well. Okay. I don't really have any questions. This has come several times before us. I didn't know if any of the other members of the board have any questions, John or Rob?
This is not the first time we've had this in Westwood, so I'm fine.
I had no additional questions.
Okay,
Mr. Chair,
yes.
I believe Nora may have some, I think there was a suggestion, if I'm not mistaken, Nora, that we were going to ask of the devices.
Yes, on the device that's at the corner of High Street and Gay Street, the lower box is on the east side of the pole, and it's very close to where the pavement for the driveway comes in to that property. We're wondering if you could rotate the box so it's on the south side of the pole rather than the east side. That might avoid it being clipped by large vehicles or trucks as they're coming into that driveway.
I would ask Sean Conway if he's on. He's our engineer for small cells. Is he on the call? I'm sorry, I can't see all the participants.
Not see him right now. Tish, do you see Sean?
He's an attendee. We just have to move him to a panelist.
Okay.
We've tried and he has to accept.
I know he has his hand. Oh,
Oh,
he's
here.
coming in now.
He's coming in now.
Thank you, Tish.
You see him?
I
Not yet.
don't see him, but he's no longer an attendee. Oh,
Oh,
there he
here he
is.
is.
There he is.
Hello?
Hi, Sean.
Hi. I think it worked this time. So I was having some difficulties getting on to the as a panelist. So in regards to the to moving the remote radio unit to the south side of the pole, I wanted to confirm if Derek, could you bring up a copy of the lease exhibit just so we could look at what side the radio will be moved to in relation to the street and the sidewalk?
Derek, are you able to hear us, Derek? I know you're on mute.
Yeah, can you hear me now? Sorry about that.
Yes, I
I was
can.
having trouble with the mute button. So Sean, currently, as we show it in the detail section, we are right on where you pull in the, I don't know what business that is, but it's right in that driveway. So if we rotated it, we could flip it towards the other side of the pole, I guess facing, what is that main road there? High Street. We could put it on the High Street side if you want to say. We should be fine. So basically where the existing pole that hasn't been removed yet is, we could put it on that side.
Yeah, that's where the real estate brokers are, on that corner.
So I think that might keep it more within a landscaped area and further away from where vehicles go.
Yes, absolutely. Based on where it is, Nora, yes.
So then a couple of other suggestions were that the board consider requiring the removal of the double poles prior to the installation of the small cells. And that the board require that the components all be painted the same neutral gray color.
Okay, now we're removing a double pole right up John's alley. John?
Yes.
So that would be the first requirement, Paula, is to get that double pole off.
How about all double poles in Westwood?
Well, we can certainly confirm that we'll remove those two double poles before installing this equipment. Absolutely. And also Stan Yusevich is on from the government affairs side. He has additional information regarding double poles if you'd like some.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes, we would.
I just happened to pull the double poll report in Westwood. There are a number that appear to be streetlights that are non-participating in our database. 24 of them, as well as a third-party municipal cable that's kind of holding up at least 16 of those, and 16 with the fire alarm. But I'll shoot this list over to Chris, and we can talk about how to first identify which department within the town is responsible for moving those particular wires. And I do show a total of 67 in all of the town, but I'll work with Chris to make sure we've properly identified who's next to go.
So, Mr. Chair, if I can just say, so Sam, that would be great. As far as the 16, I think you identified the remaining ones. What would be the status of those remaining ones that don't have any ties to municipal wiring?
Typically, what we've found, Chris, is that they're either department of the school department has perhaps a intranet that is attached to the poles that hasn't been identified, or it could be a old intranet that was licensed by the town with their first cable provider. But we'll have those addresses and those locations. And if you take a look at them, maybe perhaps you could best identify who they might be. But we'll work together on that, Chris.
Mike, are you ready for a motion?
I am. Well, John, you know what? It is a public hearing, so I do have to open up to questions or comments from the public. And I know we've been getting some, I'll call it internet traffic on our chat that Tish has been kind enough to dismiss, but we do have one from Sharon. But Sharon, you have to identify yourself more with your name and your address, please. She's asking, of course, about the radiation from these towers, and says we have small children, but doesn't identify what area it's located in. So did you just want to talk about that? We come across this every time about the radiation from the towers.
Sure, I can talk a little bit about that, and then if either Sean or Derek have anything further to add. These antennas, the small cells, are very low power antennas. They really emit very low levels of radio frequency, and all of them operate well within the FCC's requirements. So there really should not be an issue of concern with these. The coverage area of these antennas is approximately half a mile in each direction. So the coverage area is very small, and these are designed to target specific areas where there is a network need. So as far as the RF, I certainly hope that wouldn't be a concern going forward.
Okay. I hope that answers the question for Sharon, who's yet to fully identify herself, but we did address that. Okay. I don't see any other questions. Tish, do you see any other questions? There are no open questions at this point in time. So give it just a couple more seconds. Sharon, you still haven't identified yourself, so all you put is Sharon, so I need more information from you before I take the second question. You need to identify yourself, full name and address. Sharon Feeney of 30 Russell Avenue. All right. Sharon says that no, it really doesn't answer the question. And so, Tish, do you have the original question? I think let me go back to it. You said the radiation is below. I think it did answer the question, Sharon. Says we have small children in this area, and this is a danger to them. But Paul, you say that it's not a danger because it is within the FCC guidelines?
Yes, that's correct. It's not a danger to children or adults or residents or anyone within the vicinity of the antenna. If it would be helpful, perhaps we could reach out to this individual and provide her some more additional information, and that might help allay some of her fears.
Okay, let's see. This says, can they be moved to town land somewhere else? who will benefit from this. I think Paul, do you want to explain why you chose these locations?
Yes, these two specific locations are areas in the town of Westwood that are experiencing suboptimal coverage and capacity. So these areas have been identified by our engineers as areas where the network needs additional assistance. So these particular areas are areas that really need to be targeted. There is a definite need here. And that's why the antennas cannot be moved to another location, because the location we're servicing is the area where the need is.
Okay. And these towers are only used by Verizon, correct? No other cell providers are tapping into them?
That's correct. It's just a single small antenna on the top of the utility pole that is a Verizon antenna only.
Okay.
And by small, I mean very small. These are about less than 3 feet tall. They're very small. They look like an extension of the utility pole.
Okay. Well, Sharon, you have Paula's information, and if you don't have it, we can give it to you so you can contact her. And this, she says, revenue, no, the town does not receive any revenue from this. And Verizon Fios doesn't work in this area because it's not something different from what we're discussing this evening. So, okay, seeing no further questions, I'm going to close the public hearing. And Mr. Hearn, before I just close the public hearing, do you want to tell what capabilities we have to a certain degree as far as the select board on approving these locations?
You have, you don't have a lot of leeway on this. My understanding is you can do some of the things that Nora talked about in terms of trying to make them look as transparent as possible. But I don't believe you could block these without precipitating significant litigation against the town. So you don't have a lot of leeway. You have some leeway in terms of what Nora talked about, and you don't have any proof, scientific proof, that this is going to be bad for someone's health. You might have some leeway should you have that kind of scientific proof, but you don't. So I don't know that you could perhaps negotiate with them to move them slightly, but I'm not sure you can get them in an area where there's no congestion or traffic.
Okay.
That's my understanding of it.
Okay. And with Sharon says there are several studies out there, and Sharon, I understand there are several studies, but we've done our research on this long before today, and I can tell you that there is research on both sides to support whichever position you wish to take. So I understand that you've taken a different position, but our ability are limited based on the regulations that we are proposed or provided to us to entertain this. So with that, we will close the public hearing, and I will entertain a motion.
Yeah, we should vote on closing the hearing first.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, so I move at this time that we close the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Hickey,
Aye.
Mr. Gotti,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. Okay, now
So I move that the board grant permission to Cellco Partnership, DBA Verizon Wireless, to install small cell communication equipment on the poles at the following locations. Pole number 13-104 near the property with an address of 692 High Street. Pole number 27-65A near the property with an address of 578 Pond Street. The design of the two small cell installations shall be in conformance with the submitted petitions of said company dated February 7th, 2022, with the following conditions. All components of the wireless facility shall be painted and maintained in a neutral gray color acceptable by the Community and Economic Development Director or the town planner. All existing double poles in the vicinity of the proposed small cell installations shall be removed prior to the issuance of any building or electrical permits for those installations. The height of the lowest point of any component of the small cell installations on pole number 13-104 shall be increased to a minimum of 10 feet above the existing grade measured from the base of the pole. The equipment on pole number 13-104 shall be rotated 90 degrees to the south to avoid any potential conflict with the traffic entering the driveway to 692 High Street from Gay Street, and or take any action. Okay, so we don't need that. That is the motion.
I will second that motion.
Okay, Mr. Hickey,
Aye.
Mr. Gotti,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Derek,
Thank you.
thank you, Sean, for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving along, we have annual town meeting. This is to review the start time for the annual town meeting to be held on May 2nd. Mr. Coleman, would you like to be heard on this issue?
Sure. I believe we have, do we have our moderator? It's Jim O'Sullivan. Can you be moved from an attendee to a panelist, please?
Oh, okay. If I knew he was here, I would have encouraged him to join us.
There we
Mr.
go.
O'Sullivan, pleasure to see you, my friend.
Thank you. Pleasure to see all of you. Pleasure to be seen.
You don't sound very well, but okay. This your recommendation? This is a joint recommendation. Tell me your thoughts on this.
You addressing that to me? Yeah, we, Chris had put a committee together, and a number of us feel that it would be better, given COVID, given the pandemic, if we start town meeting earlier this year. We did it both in 2020 and 22 times in 2021. It worked well. We got a number of people to come out. People seem to enjoy the earlier time. I think it's a little bit more convenient for our senior citizens and for young families with younger children. So I'm requesting that the select board, at least for this town meeting, schedule a town meeting to begin at 6:30.
Okay. Rob or John, any questions, comments? No? Okay.
Move that the board approve the annual town meeting start time at 6:30 PM.
Second that.
Mr. Hickey,
Aye.
Mr. Gotti,
Aye.
and I vote aye to make Jim's thing unanimous. Thank you very much, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
All
Yeah,
right,
thank
thanks,
you very
everybody.
much.
Hope you feel better.
Yeah, COVID has hit the O'Sullivans.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
Right ahead.
Speedy recovery.
Yes.
I think we're gonna survive.
excellent. All right. Moving along, we have the 2022 annual town meeting article discussion, potential vote to amend, to accept, or to remove articles. So, we have two things on the agenda. So we continue this, the articles for the May 2022 town meeting. We have the acquisition of real property, the American Legion. So we have reached a tentative agreement. And Chris, do you want me to take the lead on this?
No, go right ahead, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So as you know, we had a discussion prior in a executive meeting about the purchase of the American Legion. We originally had the purchase price at $650,000, but as you might imagine, properties in Westwood have gone up, and they asked for an updated appraisal. Only to our dismay, the appraisal came in
720.
720 was the updated appraisal. And so we have reached a tentative agreement for 700,000, slightly below, but we are gonna work with them so that they can continue to maintain it as a Legion, and work with them mainly for the meetings, but the town would own the property if it passes at town meeting. So we have worked out several contingencies that, you know, they'll use it for Veterans Day, they'll use it for Memorial Day, and they'll hold their meetings about twice a month there. And but we would have control of the facility for the most part. So we are putting the language before. We've worked out, we thought perhaps it might fall apart before tonight's meeting with FinCom, but we were able to save it. And so we have reached a tentative agreement for $700,000 and other details, small minor details to be worked out. So I guess we need to vote to amend our article. Or I don't think we ever put a number on it, Chris, in the original article. So
We had 650.
We had 650.
650 was the original number. We need to amend that up to 700,000 so that we can purchase that property. And I think I would highly recommend it. As I said, land doesn't grow, so it's a great piece to add to our town hall vicinity area. And you know, as I told the other members of the American Legion, I probably won't be here when and if the Legion changes at some form in the future, but we do want to add that to keep the town hall area together for the longest time. And especially if at some point the Deerfield School becomes part of the town property or reverts back to the select board at some point in the future, this would make an excellent piece of the puzzle. So I guess
Mr. Chair, if I may just add just a couple of points to that. So just to refresh the board's memory, in November of 2020, we had an appraisal done on the property, came in at $670,000. We were negotiating and meeting with Legion officials, working very well, and we were using that number. We did request an updated appraisal. We thought it would be best both for the town as well as for the Legion to make sure we had an updated appraisal. That appraisal did come in at 720. So the tentative agreement between the town and the Legion, or the Post as they identify themselves, is $20,000 below the appraised price. So just to give you a bit of clarification, that's why it went from 650 to 700, because the appraisal did increase.
It's an important piece of property, and it's even at 700,000, it's in the town's interest to move forward.
Okay.
So I would move that the board accepts Select Board 5 acquisition of real property, the American Legion Hall at 90 Deerfield Avenue, for purchase price by the town of $700,000.
I just have a question. You know, I don't have an issue with the revised price based on the revised appraisal.
Yeah.
Are we going to run into any issues tonight with FinCom, given that they only had sort of this placeholder and didn't have really anything to review prior to us essentially asking them for a vote tonight?
I don't think so, because I did tip our hand at the last public meeting that this was on the table, or the last meeting with them. It was not the public meeting, but it was on when we went through the articles recently. Was that last week or 2 weeks?
It was I believe, Mr. Chair, was the March 15th meeting when the FinCom had their subcommittee reports.
Yes. So they do know about it, Rob. We told them that the details were not finalized and that we couldn't say beyond that. And that we did kind of tip them off that there was an updated appraisal coming, and we didn't have it yet. So we couldn't give all the details, but we promised we would give them the details, obviously, tonight at the public hearing, so that they have time to digest it, and if they have further questions. But to be honest with you, all 15 members, nobody really blinked their eye even once, knowing what a good piece this was to add to the town properties.
Mr. Chairman, if I may add
Yes.
one thing.
Of
One
course.
of the struggles I think that we have as a community is we get once, maybe twice a year, the opportunity to approve the purchase of property. It's really not set up well in today's marketplace to take advantage of opportunity. So I think you can explain to the FinCom that you moved as quickly as you could with this. These were not particularly, I don't want to say easy negotiations, but there were challenges on both sides, and you've gotten it done as quickly as you possibly can, and you've gotten it to them before their final public hearing. I've been in situations where the FinCom, where the night of town meeting, someone's appearing before the FinCom to further explain the purchase of a piece of property. So we might be a little late. We're not as late as we've been historically on certain things.
And I can recall, Mr. Hearn, we changed the number the morning or the afternoon of town meeting at one point in time even. So it has changed over the years. So I think it's
we are so tied to the charter and all those things that are good checks and balances, but it's not set up to transfer property the way property transfers in the private sector these days.
okay.
Sounds like something for the Charter Review Committee.
Yes.
right. So with that, I will second John's motion.
Okay, Mr. Hickey,
Aye.
Mr. Gotti,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. Now, we have one other thing that is not necessarily ours, but we have been asked to at least have a discussion about it. As you know, the planning board is faced with a zoning bylaw and zoning map amendments relative to the mixed use and multifamily overlay districts. You may recall this came out of the State House on a mandate, if you will, to change our zoning. And although it has not been finalized at the state level, there's lots of discussion still going on as to its enforcement, its kind of blanket language, etc. And I know Nora is listening, and Nora, you can pick up from here where I drop off, but the planning board has put together two articles, or two pieces of property, if you will, to at least start to work in the multifamily residential overlay district that chapter 40A is imposing on us. And we've had some discussion about whether or not we're a bus community or a train community, and that has not all been decided yet. But the planning board is putting these articles before town meeting, if you will, to get ahead of the state, so to say that we've at least taken some steps. And so far, there's been some pushback from residents saying, well, why are we doing it before we're mandated to do it? And so they've asked us to kind of weigh in on this, to put our opinions out there to assist or not assist, if you will, the planning board in helping that decision and understanding how FinCom will come down on this. My thought process from the first public hearing is it seems to be a pretty divided question, if you will, probably the most divisive question that is before the FinCom this year. So I personally think we're better off getting ahead of it. I've always said it's easier to say that we tried than to say that you never even stepped up to the table and even considered it. So with that, I'll open it up, Mr. Hickey, if you want to give us.
No, I mean, Nora, I mean, I know we've asked this before every time we talk about it, but we are not amending any single-family zone. We are taking some undeveloped parcels.
Correct. So what we're doing is we're putting into this new by right multifamily district that we propose 3 parcels of land. 2 of them are already developed at University Station, one for the Gables Apartments and the other for the Westwood Place condos. The third one is on Everett Street, and it's a pre-existing non-conforming industrial use property within the Highway Business District that is also covered by an overlay district that already allows residential use there. So we're really not giving away anything. We're making that residential use a by right use as opposed to a special permit use on a property that we're hoping to see redeveloped. And in doing so, we pick up about 16 acres of what the state currently requires us to have a 50-acre district. We're hoping to push back on that and get a reduction in the size of the district we need. And we think that by putting these 16 acres in, including just that one undeveloped parcel on Everett Street, that we're getting a first step as a jump on this regulation. And we believe we're complying with both the letter and the spirit of the law by having this by right multifamily district as we are now required to do as of last January.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, I agree. I think we need to get ahead of it because this is the future.
Okay. Mr. Gotti, would you like to weigh in? I'm not going to take an official vote, but I think I would like to say to the FinCom that unofficially, this was the opinion of the review board this evening.
Sure. Couple things. One is I think we have, as a community, weighed in with feedback, both as a select board and the planning board, with letters regarding the guidelines as they were drafted. Is that not right?
It is correct, sir.
Okay. And then we feel like if we have this passed, we are in better shape, and therefore we have zoned for it. So if something were to try to come to Westwood, we have a place designated for it to go, which is the Everett Street location. In absence of that, there wouldn't be protection in some of those residential neighborhoods that fall within the half-mile radius. Is that also true?
Say that again. I'm sorry. I
So
lost.
if someone were to, given that this is already state law, theoretically, someone could put a house up for sale that is within a half mile of one of those train stations. And a developer could make the claim that he or she has the by right authority to put a multifamily unit in there in absence of us having something already zoned.
So I don't see that happening right away, Rob, but I could see that happening a year or so down the road, where, especially in those communities that just say, we're not going to do it. I could see a creative developer taking an aggressive stance and try and force the community into accepting a multifamily situation within a half mile of a bus station or a train station in Westwood. We don't have any subway stations. So
Right.
it's conceivable that could happen. And even if they fail, I think we'd end up with significant litigation and litigation costs to defend our zoning in front of one of those things. Yes, I'm concerned about that. Not right away, but statutes take years to flush out in the courts. And I just think it could happen down the road. I don't think it's out of the question. I'm told I have peers who are opining that it can't happen. I respectfully disagree with them.
Right. So, Mr. Chairman, based on, having watched the process that the planning board has gone through to vet this, and, I'm in agreement with both you and Mr. Hickey on getting out in front of it.
One of the things both the planning board and you, the select board, recommended to the state is to have, right now the state is saying you're either in compliance or not in compliance. And we've advocated that there should be something called partial compliance, where a community like ourselves goes and tries to get in somewhat compliant and is moving forward, and should not be punished for not being able to identify 50 acres out of the box. And who said 50 acres is the right number for every city in town? So it's kind of a strange situation in that we're up against the law itself, but we're also up against guidelines that aren't finalized. And we're trying to make those guidelines more reasonable for both us and the rest of the Commonwealth. And we're trying to at least partially comply with what we know and believe it can be functional and work.
And also, what's interesting is that two of them are already developed. So, and the third parcel, we would love to be developed, if that at all possible. So I think the planning board's done a good job in identifying at least places to start. And I think it's always better to be ahead of it than behind.
So if you think about it logically, Mr. Chairman, if I may, if we find ourselves in a situation 2 years from now where a developer's trying to force something within a half a mile of a rail station or a bus station, if we adopt these regulations, we can say, wait a minute, we've adopted these regulations. This is a work in progress. We should not be penalized. I think it gives us a much stronger stance should we end up in court on one of these kind of suits.
Yeah, I have a tendency to agree, Mr. Hearn. And, as a workers' comp attorney, I always tell my clients it's better to have tried and failed than to never have tried. And it's a lot easier to say it in front of any judge that we're trying and then we haven't even stepped up to the plate. So,
well, Mr. Walsh, I always advise my clients, and I'll advise you, it's always better to look more reasonable than your opponent in court.
yes. Okay. Thank you. All right, so I don't need to take an official vote this evening, but I will convey that to to the FinCom in the next 20 minutes when we attend their meeting shortly. So, okay. I think that's the only one that we really needed to discuss. I know the solar array was there, but I don't think that was much of a discussion from the FinCom this evening, unless I'm mistaken. But so, based on that, next issue that we have is annual town meeting warrant articles summary and listing. Did you have a chance to look at them? I guess this is the order, Chris, is what you're asking us for the articles to be presented?
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, I believe that would be something that we would like to discuss with the board at your April 1st meeting.
Okay. All right, so Pam, we have this in here, I'm sure for a reason, but all of the articles, just the typical articles, nothing has changed since our last board meeting?
Correct.
Okay. Next, we still have the Charter Review Committee appointments. And so, so far, we've been asked to appoint regular members. We have on June. On March 14th, we appointed Paul Fitzgerald, Peter Cahill, Nancy Hyde, and John Lockname to the Charter Review Committee. Tonight, we're being asked to appoint ex officio members to the Charter Review Committee, which include, and God knows they don't have enough to do, Christopher Coleman, Patrick Ahern, and Dottie Powers. So I guess I would just, I don't have any problem with appointing any of them to the Charter Review Committee. I know it would be very helpful, so unless either one of you have any comments or questions, I will entertain a motion.
I move that the board appoint Christopher Coleman, Patrick Ahern, and Dottie Powers as ex officio members of the Charter Review Committee.
And I second that motion.
Hickey,
Aye.
Mr. Gotti,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. Congratulations to 2 out of 3 of you that are here this evening. More work on your plate, but I know you'll do a great job at it.
Thank you.
Last thing on our agenda this evening, unless I'm mistaken, is the regular meeting minutes of March 14th, 2022 to approve that Tish sent out to us.
I move approval of the regular meeting minutes of our March 14th, 2022 meeting as presented.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Hickey,
Aye.
Mr. Gotti,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. Okay, that concludes our meeting this evening. Our next select board meeting will be held on Friday morning at 7:45 via Zoom. I will take a motion to adjourn into the Finance and Warrant Commission public hearing this evening at 6 p.m.
Motion to adjourn for purposes of attending the Finance and Warrant Commission meeting.
Second.
Mr. Hickey,
Aye.
Mr. Gotti,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. We'll be headed to the FinCom this evening, and our next meeting will be, as I said, Friday morning at 7:45. And then I guess our next meeting is, after that will be the 11th, if I remember correctly. So, thank you everyone for joining us this evening. Have a great night. We'll hope to see you at FinCom to find out about everything that will be presented at town meeting. Thank you.